Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the viewing and listening audience to this, the second virtual hearing of the Joint Select Committee on Social Services and Public Administration. This is the committee's second hearing with stakeholders pursuant to our inquiry into the effects of the hybrid learning system on student performance in government and government-assisted schools during the revised COVID-19 restrictions. We'd like to remind participants that this is a virtual meeting and there are specific guidelines that will apply, including one, ensuring that your microphone is muted when you're not speaking to help keep the background noise to a minimum, but also conversely to ensure that you engage your microphone when you are seeking to make a contribution. We also ask that you adjust your camera so that your face is clearly visible. And I know the background tech team would have done some checks before, but sometimes people inadvertently move out of range of their cameras. So try and keep your face clearly visible in the camera at all times. And of course, ensure that the notifications on your cell phone, if you are using a cell phone or any other electronic device in your vicinity, are muted during the course of this meeting. At this time, we would like to invite members of the committee, of which I am the chairman, Paul Richards. We'd like members of our committee who are present, others will join us in process, to please indicate their presence and introduce themselves. We can start with Member Nakid. Member Nakid, your mic is still muted.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, present and nice to be here. Chairman Richards, to move the process.
All right. Can we get Member Beckles, please?
Yes, good morning again. Thank you very much, Chairman Richards. Penelope Beckles here. Yes, looking forward to this meeting.
Thank you so much, Member Ndassing.
Good morning, Chairman, and good morning to all and the stakeholders who will be before us, and looking forward to a very interactive and fruitful discussion. Thank you.
Member Ndassing. Member Singh.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, all. My name is Avinash Singh. I'm a member of this committee and looking forward to a very interactive session this morning. Thank you. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you so much. We're also expecting the Vice Chair of the committee, Member Ford, to join us in process, and also Members Monroe and Member Sinanan, who are otherwise engaged but will join us in process. Thank you all members for joining us. Of course, I'm the committee's chairman, Paul Richards, and I'm happy to be with you to be able to engage our stakeholders once again this morning in this Joint Select Committee on Social Services and Public Administration. We have several entities before us this morning, including the Anglican Education Board of Management, the Astra Board of Education, the Sanatan Dharma Mahasabha Board of Education, the Presbyterian Secondary Schools Board of Education, the Presbyterian Primary Schools Board of Education, Clooney Central Board of Education, the Baptist Board of Management, and the Arya Pratihini Sabha School of Board. I hope I didn't mispronounce that. So we'd like the members of those entities, I think one member is present representing each entity, to please introduce themselves, starting with the Anglican Education Board of Management. Well, they're not here yet. Okay, let's go to the Astra Board of Education, please.
All the other representatives of various educational boards. I am Rahimul Hussain, General Secretary of the Anjuman Sunnatul Jamaat Association. I am also a member of the Astra Education Board. Currently, we have jurisdiction over 13 schools, government-assisted schools, 7 primary and 6 secondary schools. I'm happy to be here to share our views and listen and see how we can improve or how we can better or pave the way forward for this hybrid education to go forward. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Let's go to the Sanatan Dharma Mahasabha Board of Education, please.
Yes, good morning. My name is Jiwan Ramdani, Assistant Secretary of the Sanatan Dharma Mahasabha. I'm happy to be present here at this meeting this morning. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Presbyterian Secondary Schools Board of Education.
Hi, good morning. My name is Joel Bajnat, General Secretary of the Secondary School Board, Presbyterian Secondary School Board. First of all, I would like to apologize. Apparently, the device I'm using is experiencing some technical difficulties, so you will not be able to see my face, but I'm working on it.
Thank you. We're glad that you're here with us. We have your audio quite clearly. Next, the Presbyterian Primary School Board of Education.
Good morning. My name is Geeta Maraj, and I am representing the Presbyterian Primary Schools Board in my capacity as General Secretary. Thanks for the invitation to be part of this discussion today. And I'm sure we'll have a pretty good discussion. Thank you again.
Thank you so much for being with us. The Baptist Board of Management.
Hi, good morning, sir. Michael Hills Wilson here, Secretary of the Baptist Board of Management. Very happy to be here and hoping for a very fruitful meeting. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And the Aria Pratidhini Sabha School Board. And you can help me with the pronunciation of that, please, if I did not pronounce it properly.
The Aria Pratidhini Sabha. My name is Ravi Rambaran. I am the Secretary of the Aria Pratidhini School Board of Management. And firstly, I would like to say to the chairman and to the members of the Joint Select Committee and my fraternal colleagues in education, thank you for the invitation and the opportunity to provide the feedback. We are a 108-year-old organization. We run 9 primary schools and 1 early childhood school. Our schools are deliberately set up in the rural areas. And so I'm looking forward to sharing our feedback with you this morning. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you all so much for being with us, and we'll be joined by the Anglican Education Board of Management. And also, I'm sorry, let's go to Clooney Central Board of Education. My apologies.
Good morning. I am Deborah East. I am representing the Clooney Central Board of Management this morning. These are the schools that were founded by the Sisters of St. Joseph of Clooney. We are very happy to be here this morning to contribute, to listen, to learn, and to work with all stakeholders towards improving education for all our children.
Thank you so much. And once again, we will be joined in process by the Anglican Education Board of Management. Just to go through the inquiry's objectives, there are 4 main objectives, including 1, to assess the effectiveness of the hybrid learning system used by government and government-assisted schools in curriculum delivery. 2, to compare and contrast student performance using traditional versus hybrid learning systems for similar time periods. 3, to examine the systems and methods used to monitor and evaluate student performance in the hybrid learning environment. And 4, to assess the readiness of the hybrid learning environments and system to adequately prepare students for external examinations. At this time, we advise you to, both committee members and officials, representatives, to direct your questions, concerns, or comments through myself, the chair. And we'd also like to remind you, because very often we forget, to activate your microphones on your devices when you are seeking to make a contribution, and to kindly turn it off when you have concluded making your contribution. So at this time, and I think we have the Anglican Board has just joined us. So good morning to the Anglican Education Board of Management. Could you identify yourself, please? Or they're in process of joining? So good morning again to the Anglican Education Board of Management. If you could identify yourself and your organization, please.
Good morning. I do apologize for being late. I was informed by my board that this meeting was put off. They said they received a call from the office, so I do apologize for being late.
Well, you're here with us now, so thank you for being with us. Could you identify yourself for the listening and viewing public, please? I think we're having a little difficulty. We'll get back to that. Yes, I was saying before, we have 4 main objectives. Just to give some context, which I did on our last occasion when we met with the government schools, primary and secondary schools, and the Education Ministry officials, that the Education Ministry had kindly submitted quite a bit of data on the 15th of December 2020, which now may have been steelated quite a bit, but will still be certainly relevant to our discussions today. And it's focused on the inquiry into the effects of the hybrid learning system on student performance and government-assisted schools during the revised COVID-19 restrictions. And as you would know, as education stakeholders, those restrictions had been further revised by the government with the allowing of for standard 5 students and forms 4 and 5 students, and I think form 6 students are in preparation of their practicums and their examinations coming up, and also the SCA, which is, I think, carded for June 10th, coming up later this year. So there have been further revisions and relaxations to some of those earlier restrictions. The ministry had provided information for context, and I'll just go through a little bit of the information for you, because you may not have been privy to the information divulged at the last sitting. Of course, one of the questions was, what has been the feedback obtained regarding teaching and online learning systems categorized in relation to perspectives of teachers, students, and parents? 1, to what extent are students grasping lessons and the stimulating content? The report indicated, most teachers reported they have reliable internet connection. That's 81.5%. secondary and 71.9% primary. And that was at that time, so it may have changed. So you were advised us of your own experiences, and they were satisfied with the software they were using, 68.2% primary and 73.2% secondary. Substantially less teachers agreed that students had reliable internet, 34.1% primary and 35.3% secondary. Agreed that students had reliable internet, which is essential for a hybrid system. Access to devices, which has been a major concern over the last 9 or so months. 33.4% primary, 35.3% secondary, and also importantly, in terms of learning environments, a peaceful environment for remote learning, 29.9% primary and 29.2% secondary. There had been questions also asked about the extent to which teachers thought students were grasping the lessons and assimilating the content. Teachers were asked to rate the effectiveness of remote learning and compared to traditional learning on a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being not effective and 5 being very effective in a Likert scale. On average, primary school teachers gave a rating of 2.9 out of 5, while secondary school students gave a rating of 3.14 out of 5. We also had information based on the number of students who actually were logging on and students who had not logged on, how many students at each level of schooling are currently unable to access at the various online learning platforms. And keep in mind also, for accuracy, this is a report that was delivered to us on the 15th of December. So the data may have changed significantly or not. So we have to keep that in mind. In primary schools, 39,861 or 35.1%, and in secondary schools 6,909 or 8.4%. And at the ECC E level, 2,195 students were at that time stated as unable to access various online portals. So we want to get your experiences where those data points are concerned. The Ministry of Education also indicated that platforms are a combination of learn.moe.gov.tt, where there are coursework, resources, and worksheets, and live classes. 158,766 students registered since the 16th of the 3rd month, that's March 2020. 6,393 students online, which was registered as a 26.8% decrease. The average daily login for the week referencing 913 students. 51.9% of students accessed via desktop, while 39.9% via mobile devices and 8.2% via a tablet device. And I'm actually going to underline almost 40%, well, basically 40% at that time were accessing via mobile devices, and how effective you find that is in terms of students' ability to use a mobile device. I know I'd find a challenge. And 953 courses are available from 49 were under development for publishing. In terms of those who would have accessed, 81,589 students and teachers accessed the portals as of the 16th of March. 8,029 teachers and students were online. There were 18,362 sessions, which translated to 2.42 sessions per user at that time again, and 49.6% of users accessed via mobile, 42.4% via desktop, and 8% via a tablet device. Again, what jumps out at me here is 49.6% of users via a mobile device. Right, so that's some of the data related to the system, the education system, as submitted by the Education Ministry as of the 15th of December, 2020. That's last year. So we move now to what we'd like to find out your experiences would have been, and I'd like to ask for some quick opening comments again and concise comments on, so we can start a discussion based on your deliverables. Let's start with the Senator Dharma Mahasabha, Board of Education, and Mr. Ramdani, and as the Assistant Secretary, and what your experience has been.
Good morning. The experience is different. Various schools, depending on the location of the school, the situation changes. It changes with respect to the connectivity. It changes with respect to access to devices. And what we have found is that over a period of time, the time that you quoted earlier on to now, it has improved where through the assistance of the Ministry of Education, through the assistance of the board, and even through the assistance of parents, many more students are accessing connectivity and devices.
Okay, thank you. And from the area, Pratini Sabha of Trinidad and Tobago, what is your experience been? Mr. Rambaran?
My apologies. Similar to the Mahasabha, our experience is mixed depending on the location of the school. So for example, if you take our flagship school, Gandhi Memorial and Arangwes, everyone has a device, everyone is connected. And there's, because of the higher level of socioeconomics there, they have that. Then you take our other schools, Barak, Boria, Claro, half of these schools don't have devices. But generally throughout the schools, what we find is, although there's internet access, the internet access is not reliable. Frequently during the day, children are dropping out, and many of them sometimes just can't reconnect. But if I had to give an overriding theme on the 4 areas of inquiry: effectiveness, student performance, systems and methods, and readiness, and to arrive at a conclusion, our view would be that the quicker these children return physically in schools, the better it would be. And I'm saying that from a primary school viewpoint, from our own experience, where you're dealing with children 11-year-olds and under, and the statistics on mobile devices, that's broadly our experience too. This is unsustainable.
Thank you. Well, the sustainability of it is a serious factor, but at the end of the day, as we would all understand, the return of students to schools on a full-time basis is solely dependent on the assessment of the health officials.
We accept that.
Preservation of life is paramount in this, although learning is also very important in education. So we are guided by the health officials and the government in that regard. Thank you, Mr. Rambaran. Let's go to the Presbyterian Primary Schools Board of Education. Ms. Maharaj, please. Ms. Maharaj.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. A lot of what has been said previously by Mr. Ramdani and Mr. Rambaran does hold. However, things have changed, and we have to say, based on our feedback from our principals and our schools, our primary schools, we can say that we have about 87% of our students online and 13% not online, and mainly because of some lack of devices and a lack of connectivity. So that is basically our position right now.
All right, thank you. And I'm going to ask all the stakeholders in turn, again, going down. In terms of the students, Ms. Maharaj has indicated 30% of students not online. What are the experiences regarding delivered packages? Because some of the stakeholders would have indicated that, well, for those students who do not have connectivity and or devices or unreliable connectivity, there may have been provisions in some cases, if not all, to deliver the curriculum and the school resources directly to students in printed packages, and what your experiences would have been where those are concerned. Since you are there, Mrs. Maharaj, if you could give us your
sure. Now, there's a lot of our teachers and our principals regularly, every week, have specific days when they would come in, have their discussions and so on with the different departments. They do it sometimes in person or with all the protocols, of course, observed. But the packages are prepared. There's a specific time, a specific day, dates for collection, but the problem is that it is not always collected on time, and it is not always brought back on time. So that is the main setback. Of course, there are schools that are having problems with photocopiers and lack of toner and stuff like that, and well, funding didn't come in time and that kind of thing. And of course, you have the use of this equipment more regularly and in a more, shall we say, a more concentrated way than it was before. So upkeep of this equipment and stuff like that, costs a lot of money. But where packages are concerned, the principals and teachers are doing the best that they can. They put it out there. There are some that do not, that, like I said, are not collected, sometimes for more than a week. So you find that when that happens, it is difficult for the students who are collecting these packages not on time and not returning it on time to be corrected. You find that there's a disparity in, shall we say, keeping up with those who are online.
Thank you so much.
Again, sorry, sir. That again will depend on whether it's collected, what arrangements the parents make. But they are there at the school at the appropriate and appointed time, and parents are given proper, shall we say, they will know when to come and stuff like that. So that's being done.
Thank you so much. Let's go now to Mr. Michael Hills-Wilson of the Baptist Board of Management.
Yes, sir. Our schools, our students have been, about 75% have been doing very well. We must thank our teachers for their positive action, both online and extra classes that they have sometimes. Our students are grasping the help that's given from the Ministry of Education. We are happy for that, and ensuring that work is done. Our problem as well, like some of the others, our students from some of the areas, the packages are collected in some cases and not returned on time. So that is a bit of a problem. The suggestion is that the social worker might visit the homes to find out what's happening, because some of our parents are not at home at certain times, and therefore that may cause part of the students not to send back in their reports. But in general, they're getting by and work is continuing apace. However, there's nothing like face-to-face teaching. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Hills Wilson. Let's go to the St. Joseph Clooney Board of Education, Ms. East, the acting principal and acting secretary.
Good morning again. In terms of the access, internet access and devices, most of our schools, most of our students have access to the internet as well as devices. Initially, when we started, there were some students who did not have access, and we did explore that option of packages. That did not work very well because we had the same issues that were raised before, where some students, the packages were collected and some students opted, they may return one for one subject, but not for the other. We did get assistance from the board as well as from our stakeholders, alumni, and so on. And so at this time, most of our students have devices, and those who don't own those devices, they have devices that are loaned. We do have a few students who are using phones as well, and that's a concern that you would have expressed, Mr. Chairman. But they seem to be able to navigate those phones to be able to access classes and so on. One of the issues that we have in terms of devices and access is that changes daily. It's very dynamic. So you will do a survey and you will check, and all of your students will have devices this week. And if you check the same students next week, you'll find that something went wrong with the technology and so on. So it's an ongoing situation. And at any one day or any other time that you check, the figures may be different. But for now, the Clooney schools, we can say that our students have devices and access.
Thank you so much, Ms. East. Let's go now to the Astra Board of Education, Mr. Hussain.
Mr. Chairman, we share a similar concern as the other denominational boards. The access to devices, even though it's in a minority, it is of great concern to us. The teachers, we want to think, and from our chatting with the teachers, interaction with the school system, this system that the ministry is asking us to assess, the hybrid learning system. Our review of the literature, we don't think it's a true hybrid learning system in place currently in our schools. I remember the true hybrid system really involves where some students attend classes physically, and at the same time, the same instructional practices that the teacher passes on to the physical students present is the same instruction given to the online students. So we don't think it's a true hybrid system of teaching learning that exists currently. And probably that's something we need to look at. I remember distinctly when I attended this one of these sessions last year. We were, I think it was mid-year if I'm not mistaken. I suggested that if we equip our schools with the infrastructure, meaning the internet connectivity, and all the teachers attend the school and do their online teaching from the school. The reply from your high office, Mr. Chairman, was that it was a noble idea. But eventually, it is taking place right now. What we are seeing is purely the online classes. Purely. The teacher has to visit the school, as Ms. Geeta said, to deliver and pick up assignments, to deliver assignments at the school. Sometimes it is not forthcoming. So what we are saying, and we are seeing that there seems to have been a little more preparation on the part of the teachers, preparing them for this hybrid learning. If we want to really say we are engaged in a true hybrid learning system. In the program, in one of the documents that was sent to me on the Appendix 2, it did mention blended/hybrid learning system, a combination of both physical teaching and that the same instruction reaches the child who is unable to attend the school. So what we could gather from that is that how can we, that problem of a lack of devices for students, if we have them, if we put systems, I've heard you when you said that it all depends on the Ministry of Health guiding and whatnot. But if we look at the students who are unable, lack of connectivity, lack of devices, and we have them come to the school, we have the teacher present in the school. The teacher delivers the instruction from the school, both to the physical present student and those on. And I'm repeating myself, but that would entail now a lot of infrastructure being put, physical infrastructure being put into the school. For example, you would need enclosed classrooms. How many of our schools, primary schools especially, have the enclosed classroom? That's something we need to look at. But at this time, I would like to say that while we commend the Ministry of Education for getting some kind of teaching, learning, assessment in the system, we need to do a little bit more. We need to have more physical infrastructure in place. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And I agree with you in principle, but I mean, this situation evolved that no one could predict. And I think that the ongoing or the evolution of this will certainly include some of your suggestions where some students would have to come into the physical space. But again, I mean, this is about guidance from the health officials and what they see the data is presenting in the public domain, where I guess some students will, right now we're at standard 5 and form 5, forms 4 and 5 and form 6 to see how that goes. And I guess that started last week, Monday on the 8th. So the ministry officials, I'm sure, will get a sense of the risks involved where that is concerned and what the data is presenting. And then they will probably make a decision after that to see what can happen. But thank you for your contribution. Let's go now to Mr. Joel Bajna of the Presbyterian Secondary Schools Board of Education.
Okay, good morning again once. Well, I have finally switched devices, so you should be getting a video.
Thank you.
The concerns really are few. The secondary school boards, fortunately, due to the ADCOM committees and them in our relevant schools, were able to secure devices for the children. Some of the problems that may occur, still occur, is that connectivity issues, the internet issues at home, some because of locations and things like that. The communication process is hampered. And so delivery of the actual work, it tends to be difficult. Apart from that, the schools have, each student has devices, laptops, the ADCOM committees, the relevant PTAs in the different schools have already had things in place. And the secondary schools were gearing for online exams for some time now. So due to this pandemic, a lot of infrastructure were already in place to create this e-education or this hybrid program. So far it is working well with about an average of 95 or so students attending classes. We did have one of the schools, maybe 1 or 2 students who stopped. And communication is there with the relevant deans and the parents to inquire in case students do not show up to classes, why, and seek to have them inform the teachers or the relevant deans when students would not be able to attend classes virtually. But more or less, everything is under control in the relevant of schools.
Thank you. And let's go to Mrs. Avian Alexander Titus from the Anglican Board of Education, and what your experience has been.
Good morning again.
Good morning.
In our Anglican schools, we would have experienced an increase in the number of children accessing synchronous learning, but unfortunately that is via phone. And then what would happen is, as one of the other members, attendees would have indicated, was that 1 week they have access and another week the device is damaged and there is no access. There are also days when internet access is a challenge. So I remember in particular, I would have had a day where no teaching took place at a particular level because it was just challenging for the whole day. So that's something that we would experience from time to time. One of our concerns, though, would be student support services. We would hear that, yes, they are there to support. The problem is you have a disparity among the districts. So in one district, you would be aware that if children are missing for 1-2 days, they are able to call the social worker, and that social worker attends immediately to that situation. In another district, it seems as though it is business as normal. So you have to submit a referral, weeks pass, months pass, then it is assigned to a social worker. You are aware it is assigned, you see no intervention taking place, nothing happening. So there is a concern with that support that should be offered from the student support services. We think that as much as we are called as educators to be flexible and change our way of responding to what is before us now, we want to see that happen with student support services as well.
Thank you so much.
Go
ahead, please.
Okay, thank you. Packages, what we are realizing is that the packages work well, maybe for reinforcement, but the packages are not working well for instruction, especially with the little ones, those early childhood students. So, in particular, those families that we would describe as low SES, low socioeconomic, you would find that those parents have difficulty supporting the child, and certainly a package cannot give the child the support or give the child the understandings they may need to complete activities. So for us, we do not believe it to be effective at all. Slowly but surely, we are getting support from sponsors for devices, but it is slow. Some schools would have engaged parents in a loans program, but it is still not enough, and we still have a presence in many of our schools of a group of children that we deem the unreachable. And if one child is unreached, that's one too many. So we really need for all children to be able to access devices and the internet. But additionally, we discovered that for some homes, even though we give them internet, we provide devices, some cases electricity, those children still may not access because the parents are working, or just because of their value for education, things have not been put in place to support that child at home. So something else has to happen for those children, because we have a lot of parents that were not successful at school. And I suspect that this may be intimidating. This whole process may be intimidating for them. Additionally, with the access and the online and synchronous learning, what we've found is sometimes based on the children, it may take a whole term for them to acclimatize. So yes, there is a concern about how much is really being assimilated by the child. From last term to this term, we would have had to reteach certain subject areas. Yes, and clearly then a lot more support, professional development support is needed for the teachers as well, so that they can really navigate. But every term there is that sort of question looming overhead. Are they really learning? Is it really effective? In particular for the low SES students of Trinidad and Tobago, we have some low SES schools that all the children have devices because they were sponsored. And of course, in other schools, it is uneven. So I think that's my contribution. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm going to open the floor to the other members of the committee now, and I'll start by posing a question based on several of the responses. We keep talking about these missing students, and almost in an abstract way. We already have an issue in Trinidad and Tobago where between primary school and secondary school transition, based on information coming from the Education Ministry in the past couple of years that I've been able to obtain, there is a between, and it varies from year to year, 1,200 to 1,500, sometimes 1,700 student drop-off before the pandemic between primary and secondary schools. And we're talking about these students now who are adversely affected by pandemic conditions because of either their socioeconomic condition, their lack of connectivity and their devices. And the question is, are you getting more or the type of support you need from student support services to identify if you refer these students to the Ministry of Education and to remediate or to devise some sort of mechanism to reach these students? Because it's all well and good for us to identify them and say, well, there's X percentage or Y percentage or X number of students who are unreachable, don't have devices, or not returning the packages. But these gaps are having a significant instant impact on their education and by extension their futures. And we're going to start to see the effect of this, if it's not remedied, in 2 to 3 years moving forward. So my question to you, while I open the floor to the other members of the committee, is what are the solutions that you see, because you're on the ground, you're the stakeholders, and are you getting the kind of extra support from student support services through social workers or other mechanisms to intervene in these cases? Who wants to go first?
Chairman?
Yes, go ahead, please.
Have a go. Okay. I think generally, certainly our experiences, there is a minority where they don't have access. So let's for the time being ignore the mode of access, whether it be phones or tablets. So we have a minority, certainly in our schools, of the order of 15%, say, where accessibility or devices is an issue, but it's connected. It's connected to the socioeconomic status. It's also connected to, before the advent of the pandemic, those students themselves were struggling. The pandemic has simply exacerbated their struggle. And so, yes, the ministry has done a commendable job in these packages, and the teachers themselves where they can. But when you're in a home where, for various reasons, the parents either they have work or ad hoc work, they simply can't supervise children. And
we're on the same page, and we say 15% as a number.
No, I'm not dealing with. I'm dealing with the Vedic school experience, not dealing with the aggregation of, because we are not privy to these statistics that you read out, by the way, from the Ministry of Education. We'd love to have them. So to me, given that our teachers and our principals, to be fair, they're coping, I would think, pretty well in a different environment. It's really one of resources. There has to be a targeted, and I use that word deliberately, a targeted intervention for this minority. It has to be. We can't expect our teachers and our principals who are already having to cope with this new system to deal with what I would call fundamentally socioeconomic. They're all connected by their socioeconomic status, okay? And so there has to be a targeted intervention, and the boards themselves do not have the resources to effect such a targeted intervention. And so at the same time, our experience of the social services, etc., is one of resources. There's a fundamental challenge because, so I don't have this full solution, but what I do know, there has to be a specific initiative targeted at these children who simply have no devices, who would have, as I said, prior to that, have issues. So there has to be a targeted socioeconomic intervention. That is the only way to avoid it, because I agree with you. The statistics will show over the years, these children, is not a high threshold to enter from primary school to secondary school. So if you're not even meeting what I call a low threshold, that exacerbates the problem. So I think the one takeaway is for that minority, targeted intervention. We can't expect the normal teaching system.
Well, it won't solve itself. Thank you. Members of the committee, the floor is open. Anyone wants a question or comment?
Chairman, if I could,
Go ahead, please.
pleasant good morning again to all. And I have heard, and while we have not heard the specific numbers, and we have been hearing percentages from the different representatives and so on, in terms of devices, and in certain instances we would have heard about students using phones to access the online teaching and so on. Have the respective schools under their respective jurisdictions engaged the Ministry of Education for the necessary support for devices from the ministry under the what we would call Adopt a School program? And what has ministry in terms of the provision of devices under the Adopt a School program? I'd like to get some feedback from the respective representatives.
Mr. Narsingh?
Yes, go ahead, please, Mrs. Maraj.
All right.
Yes.
Now, I know the Presbyterian Primary Schools Board, under that initiative, has attracted that help, that Adopt a School program with at least 2 or 3 of our schools. It's not a large number, but there are some. Where that has happened, we are happy to say that there has been quite a lot of help there. Also, the ministry had another initiative where they asked the Telecommunications Authority of Trinidad and Tobago to furnish and donate devices. So far, in the Presbyterian primary schools, about 1/3 of our schools have been able to receive over 500 devices. They are mainly tablets and media, I forget the name, media pads and tablets. So our snow. We have 1/3 of our schools has received not 500, 300, and about just over 300 devices. And I think right now, some of our schools are still receiving, so that number will increase. So that has been the experience in those 2 initiatives from the Presbyterian Primary Schools Board, where the Ministry of Education is concerned with the Adopt a School program and the TAT, what we call the Telecommunications Authority of Trinidad and Tobago, the TAT devices. Thank you.
So if I could ask in terms of numbers have you applied for? How much have you been provided with? If you, or in terms of a number that is outstanding at the moment.
Sorry. Initially, right, we have from all the schools that we have gotten about close to 7,000 students without devices, right? And we had about a third of that number with connectivity issues. Okay? There's
7,000 you said?
Huh?
How many students?
When we asked our principals and teachers to furnish us with information of the number of devices required, but that was since last year, we got 6,998. So I'm saying 7,000. Okay?
And this is the Presbyterian primary schools alone?
Yeah. But remember, we're looking at what has happened, though you have to understand as well, that whatever devices that were given, it has been distributed through the schools, but because of the pending SCA, the standard 5 students have been given preference. Okay? Now, in almost all our schools, the standard 5 students have been fortunate to get devices. In the cases where there are not, those are few and far between. What will stop that would be the connectivity issues, right? So you might have, some people don't have electricity, and then again, some people don't have connectivity because they can't afford it and that kind of thing. Some of these devices that have been given also come with a 3-month, I think, data plan, if you want to call it that, or something that they will have connectivity, so they don't have to depend on something. So our numbers are large. There are those who have, like I said, about a third of that number with the connectivity issues. But like I'm saying, we had the standard 5 students. We have about what? Standard 5 students will be about 2,500 and in the vicinity of 2,500, right? So we have tried to make sure that they all get devices, those standard 5 students, and came from various places, not only the adopted school program and not only the ministry. But I believe that the initiative with that and the initiative with the Ministry of Education, they have both borne fruit. So if you're looking for numbers, Mr. Indar Singh, all I can tell you is that at a point we looked at 7,000 devices needed. I will not go so far as to say that our students have received anywhere close to that, if you understand what I'm saying. But I am saying that there has been efforts made to make that as close as possible, but that's the reality.
Can we get a sense from Ms. East and also Mr. Hills Wilson about their situation regarding Member Indarsing's question about devices, please?
Deborah East, Clooney schools, our devices came mainly from private sector and from alumni or various stakeholders. One of our schools received 4 devices from the adopted school program. But as I said, all of the other devices that we received, they did not come from ministry, they came from private sector.
Do you have a gap still where that's concerned, or are you relatively comfortable with where you are with devices?
Yes, we are relatively comfortable. We still have a few students. Every week, as I said, the number changes, but we do have. Good to hear. Yes.
And Mr. Hills Wilson?
Yes, sir. Most of our children, they have devices now, about 75% of them. I'm still using the percent. Some was donated by good citizens. Some came from the government. And we're still seeking to get a few devices for some children.
What would you say is your percentage shortfall at present?
About 25%.
One quarter of your students don't have devices.
Yes.
Okay, and Mr.
Those are
Bajnath?
the ones with connectivity problems, most of them.
Mr. Bajnath, what's your situation? Mr. Bajnath from the Presbyterian Secondary Schools? Okay, while he's getting sorted, let's go to Ms. Alexander Titus. And what's your situation with the Anglican Board of Education? In terms of devices and connectivity, what do you...
Good morning.
What do you think your gap is, your shortfall is?
My gap is about 25 to 30% as well.
So almost about a quarter of students.
Yes.
Still
yes.
And this is up to date right now?
Yes.
Okay. And did we cover the Astra board, Mr. Hussain, and what your gap is? Okay, let's go to Mr. Rambaran.
Yes, as I was, Mr. Chairman.
Or Mr. Hussain, I yield to you. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you so much, sir. With respect to the ASJA schools, we have a small percentage, less than 10%, who are without devices. On the quest to be directly answering MP Indar Singh's, committee member Indar Singh's question, we have a total primary school population in ASJA about 2,100 students. So we are looking, let's say 10%, that's about 210 students. You know, and I remember an old Sufi story. The shepherd is not concerned about the flock, that the number of sheep that they are together, but the one or two that has gone astray. And we need to pay attention to those students. As far as the government is concerned, the government would have, the Ministry of Education would have this first-hand information as to who and the number in each school, how many are without devices. And what the government should have, I don't think any one of us, our board do not know what is the criteria used by the Ministry of Education to distribute laptops or devices. Most of our devices have come from the private sector and individuals. Thank you.
That's why you're here. We're trying to get information directly from you.
Yes.
All right, Mrs. Alexander Titus. Did you give us a sense of your gap?
Pardon me?
For the Board of Education.
The gap indicated 25 to 30%.
25%, okay. Thank you. Did we leave out anyone? Mr. Rambaran, sorry.
So, Chairman, of about 2,400 odd students, I would say right now we have about 200 students with our devices. Most of our
10% also.
Right, but most of our devices we have engaged through sponsorship and fundraising by the organization itself. That's where we have got most of our devices.
Thank you. And did we get a sense from Mr. Ramdani from the Sanatan Dharma Mahasabha of what your gap may be?
It's about 30%, and with the Adopt School program, the Mahasabha received no device from the ministry. The Mahasabha provided over 1,000 devices through their own initiative, over 50 from private citizens. And right now, we have about 500 devices provided by the TAT program, which is assisting us in getting rid of some of the students without devices. Thank you.
Well, I'll consider TAT a state. Let's members of the committee, you have any questions at this time? Before I open again. Did you finish, Member Ndasing?
I would like to ask a follow-up question. In terms of we have heard the percentages or the numbers. In terms of the vulnerable students, are the schools under their charges, their respective jurisdiction, have they been communicated with from the Ministry of Education in terms of the means test? And what will be the criteria through this means test for vulnerable students to access devices through the Ministry of Education Adopt School program? And in addition to that, has the ministry started to roll out these means tests in the respective schools so the process could get going?
Let's start with Mr. Ramdani on that. The response, please.
The Mahasabha has not received any information with respect to the means test at this point in time.
Thank you, Mr. Rambaran.
Same here, Chairman.
Mr. Rambaran, in response to Member Ndasing's question about the means test.
Yeah, we don't have that information.
Okay. Ms. Maharaj?
We don't have that information, sir.
Let me ask the question, does anyone have information regarding the means test and how it's to be applied as a conversation with the Ministry of Education?
No.
Well, I take it that no one has that information. Member Naked, you had your hand up?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, go ahead, please, Member Naked.
Well, my question has changed focus now that I would like to know why, I don't know if this is the form, we don't have the Ministry of Education with us, why none of these boards have been alerted as to the means test. I mean, how are we to progress in the purpose of this select committee? I don't understand. I really am confused now. But anyway, given that there's been some woeful miscommunication, obviously, by the Ministry of Education, I would like to ask all these boards, has there been any synergy between these boards as in terms of getting these students with devices? Because I'm looking at the data, and some of the boards are well placed in terms of students having devices, such as Cluny. I saw that in St. Joseph Convent, Port of Spain, that everyone has a device. And Providence, which is part of that board, I think it's a minimal percentage without. And then I listened to Mr. Rambaran, who was very, very apt and focused in his presentation about people in rural areas not having. Then there should be some kind of synergy, I would hope, between the boards and not rely on maybe state intervention. Is there a possibility for that to happen, or has there been any communication between these boards to have some kind of synergy between them?
That's a good question, Member Naked, and it speaks to clearly some boards have better mobilization mechanisms and better support systems, and I think it's a very good question if there's been any conversation between these denominational boards as to how those with more resources can assist those with less resources and close those gaps. Exactly. Since we as one nation intend to move forward. So I would really like to hear something from... Anyone want to jump out of that? Mr. Hussain?
As far as I am aware, most of the communication from the ministry to the school, to Asja Primary, to the Asja board, it comes through the principal. If the principal do not inform us, then we are not in the know. So I am suggesting that there is a direct, if the ministry decides to send a communique to the principals of the various schools, please send it to the board, because all the boards have a secretary.
Mr. Hussain, the question from Member Naked is, you are representing the various boards here.
Right.
There's boards who have indicated that they seem to have the number of devices they need almost covered, and there's some boards who have indicated that there's a gap in students who have devices and a shortfall. And please correct me if I'm wrong, Member Naked, he's asking if there has been any collaboration by the boards or between the boards as to how they can best serve the needs of all students, if some have better mechanisms for mobilizing or resources or not. Has that happened in your opinion?
I thought that if I heard Member Naked, he said, is there a synergy between the boards and the Ministry of Education, if I am correct? That wasn't it. Okay, we have mobilized to ensure that all our students receive devices. As I indicated, we have a minority, about less than 10%.
I think the question, Mr. Hussein, is have you collaborated with any other boards?
Not to my knowledge.
Thank you. Mr. Rambaran?
Through the chair, yes. I think it's fair to say that we have not had the sharing of financial resources between the boards. That's a fair statement. That's how we have always operated. What we do share, we do have a forum, the denominational boards. We have a forum where we meet regularly, and through the secretaries of the boards, and they share common concerns. And then through those common concerns, they're prioritized, and there is an engagement with the Ministry of Education. But typically, it all comes down to lack of resources, lack of focus. That tends to be the response. But I would like to say, though, that we do meet and we do discuss solutions. Some are taken sometimes, and majority aren't. But the reality is that every board has had to go out. And I want to explain why it is difficult to have this pooling of synergies between boards. We run community-based schools to a large extent. So what happens is that depending on the community, the strength of that community, we get sponsorship from the businesses in those communities and from the alumni of those schools, because fundraising is at a local level for people to feel emotionally attached to a school. Then what happens, there is intervention by the boards, certainly by our board, at a broad level to provide resources. But again, all boards are strapped with financial resources. So simply put, we do not share in terms of financial resources or physical resources with other boards. We share ideas for improvement of the system.
And while I take your point, I think under pandemic crisis conditions, if one board can provide resources and laptops and devices for 8,000 students, it means that they probably can get 2,000 more devices to give to another board that may be in need. And that's just the suggestion I think Member Naka may be giving. Mr. Ambaran, you have a contribution. Sorry, go ahead, Mr. Ramdani, sorry. Mr. Ramdani.
Yeah, as the secretary of the Association of Denominational Boards, we have met, and only this morning we have a proposal for low-cost internet that we would be sending out to all the denominational boards. Through the chair of the association, Mrs. Mangru, from the Catholic Board, we have been in contact with some providers to get some low-cost internet, and that would be rolled out shortly.
Thank you. Member Singh.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A quick question to all the boards represented here today. I've listened to everyone speak about the lack of connectivity. I'm happy to hear Mr. Ramdani's point just now in relation to a low-cost internet package proposal. But my question is really geared towards the connectivity side of things, because in listening to all the boards this morning, Mr. Chairman, most persons indicated that they have issues with connectivity, some schools in rural communities, and so on. So in some of these areas, whether the students have devices or not, the internet connectivity still will remain a problem. My question is, what, as boards, as representatives, and persons receiving devices from TAT, what have the boards done in making representation to these internet providers to have that problem rectified and fixed, especially in relation to some of these areas that we deemed rural that doesn't have internet connectivity?
You could start with Mr. Hills-Wilson on that one, please.
Yes, sir. Principals have been checking to find ways and means to get around that problem. We're aware that some connectivity has been given on a temporary basis for 3 months. And they are using those and still exploring other possibilities for the schools.
Thank you. Let's go to Ms. Maharaj on the same issue. Question, please.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Like Mr. Hills-Wilson, we have been hearing from our principals, especially in those areas where connectivity is almost non-existent. And the principals have, because of the different needs of the different areas, some principals have reached out to internet providers, and some of it has been, shall we say, forthcoming in an advantageous manner. And well, not all has, with a few of them who have done it, not all has panned out. But there
what does that mean? What has happened that you're happy about?
When I say advantageous manner, there was something that they were able to work out, and so that the children can have connectivity. The school, as a matter of fact, the school, and for the various homes, that there can be connectivity. That's what I mean in an advantageous manner.
So is it that they have provided connectivity where there was none, or they've given preferential rates to schools and homes?
They have provided where there was none. Right? In one or two cases where...
Have you gotten preferential rates? Like packages and deals?
I wouldn't say... I would have to say I can't go with saying whether they got preferential rates, but I think something preferential was done for them.
Okay, thank you. Member Singh, you want to continue?
Yes, Chairman. I think in terms of the connectivity, just coming back to that, most persons in Trinidad and Tobago would know, especially if you have a mobile device, there are certain areas in Trinidad and Tobago might be deemed dead spots, if you want to call it that. So the direct question was really, what are we doing to ensure that there's proper connectivity, access, data, and whatnot, especially the rural areas, by these service providers? Because in my estimation, the landscape and the geography of Trinidad is fairly small in relation to the coverage part of things. And I think it is extremely, difficult to understand that there are still parts of Trinidad and Tobago that if you have your phone, you will not be able to receive a phone call and much less access data. So in relation to that, what are the boards doing? Are they lobbying? Are they meeting with TAT?
Ma'am, if I could intervene, I just asked the Secretariat, because of the information that we've just been in our conversation, to see if we can get up some both major telecom providers to come before us next to see, so that we can ask them the very questions.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent idea, because while the boards come out with their points about connectivity, I think we really need to get a clear idea of the service providers and their reach and their coverage, in relation to the board. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, Member Beckles.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to support your recommendation for TAT to come before the committee, because I think we need to have a really good appreciation as to what are some of the challenges that are faced in terms of broadband connectivity, especially for the rural communities, so we can have a better understanding as to exactly whether, you have one issue, which is the actual, whether or not they have devices, but then you have the other issue as to connectivity and the challenges that some students are facing in terms of where they live and the ability to be able to access the connectivity. Thank you. So I support your recommendation.
Thank you. And your suggestions also in addition to TAT, the telecom providers themselves.
Yes. And the providers. Thank you. Sure.
The Anglican board wants to make a contribution.
Chairman.
Just before member announcing, I think the person from the Anglican board wants to just make a contribution. Mrs. Alexander Titus, go ahead, please.
Hi, good morning again. I wanted to respond to your question concerning boards collaborating. And yes, the Anglican board is collaborating with the Catholic boards low-cost internet and low-cost devices.
Thank you so much.
The other question. I can't remember the other question you asked that I was supposed to respond to because I've been waiting a while. So if I
apologize for having you.
Yes.
Member Dassing, go ahead, please. Member Dassing, you can go ahead, please.
Yes, Chairman. I concur with bringing Tata and Son before the committee, but we are approximately 1 year plus into this pandemic, and I thought that while we have been asking the boards here this morning what they are doing and if they are lobbying, I think that the Ministry of Education should have been very, very proactive to get this information in terms of from the service providers about the connectivity and what needs to be done. We would have all heard from the Minister of Finance in the budget presentation that MiFi devices and so on would have been given to areas where there was the need for hotspots to be created and so on. So I hope that in going forward, all these issues would be addressed. Additionally, if I could ask, because we continue to focus on the devices and so on, but in this hybrid learning environment, have the schools been able, or the boards have been able to coordination in terms of probably mental health issues which are posing a challenge to children coping with this particular system and so on, and even from a teacher's point of view and so on, in terms of implementing, assisting and supporting children in this particular environment, if there are indeed cases of mental health challenges and so on?
Remember, that's a great question I had written down here, but just before we move on from connectivity and devices, there's a question I think that's relevant and related. And the question is to all the board reps here. Has the ministry or have your boards been able to augment your IT support? Because several of the board representatives here have indicated that while people get devices, the devices are not maintained. We have a cadre of devices going out and we start to create a junkyard. And if you have been able to augment IT support for your various schools and even students who are at home, so that the devices that are obtained at this time are maintained, and we don't end up in a cycle of having to get new devices because they're not maintained. And anyone can start on that one before we go to Member Dassing. Very important question about psychosocial support, even if it's through the student support services. So,
yes,
anyone wants to start on that?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Thank you so much. Yes, we would support Member Indar Singh's suggestion that the Ministry of Education should have been a little more proactive in lobbying the internet providers for special packages for schools and for students. But more than that, Mr. Chairman, and I hope I am not ruled out of order. From the time we began the discussion this morning, we have been talking about devices and connectivity. And the other three objectives we have not touched on unless we decide to continue after lunch, like comparing and contrasting student performance, the systems method used to monitor and evaluate. When are we going to look at that? Because you would recognize we have been only talking about devices and connectivity. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Any other board members have a comment about IT support?
Mr. Chairman, whatever IT support there is in schools, from our knowledge and from talking to our schools and our principals, some schools have been able to get within their, on their staff and maybe a little outside help to have sometimes, not all of them, just a few schools, able to put together what you call an IT committee. From my knowledge, they don't have any external support and so on, right? So that is all I can say about our Presbyterian schools for IT support. Now, last year, just when it appeared that the schools will probably have to go virtual, right? I remember that the boards were invited to a meeting, well, representatives, with the Ministry of Education. And one of the very early there on that particular meeting, they were talking about, the Ministry of Education said that they would actually work on putting up hotspots or getting hotspots put up in areas that really needed it. Now it's a year later, and I have to say that we haven't seen that the reality of that or the realization of that. Okay, so that in that case, that is my comment.
Thank you. Let's move now to Member Dasing's question to the board members about psychosocial support. Part of the data that we received last time around, certainly when we had the Ministry of Education Student Support Services before the year ended, was that the Social Support Services Division of the Ministry of Education was overwhelmed even before the pandemic. And now they have been flooded by calls with emotional behavioral issues. And if you as boards have had that kind of feedback from your teachers and parents related to students having a difficult time making this sort of transition and coping with the online environment in their various denominational boards. Since Ms. Maharaj is there, you can start with that one, please.
Mr. Chairman, from our knowledge, there are student support services, right? Officers and so on are assigned to schools. However, right, they are put in clusters so that you have a small group of people handling several schools at the same time. That is not working well. And I'll tell you why. What I mean by that is that while many of our students and our principals, when we meet with them, and we have been talking to them, and the teachers as well, say that they do referrals. They do many, many referrals. But the support is not there. And
what are the major concerns that students come to you with? What are the complaints? What are the major points of interest? Okay.
It will be behavioral. It will be, again, as Ms. Alexander Titus mentioned, that from that socioeconomic status are low. So that those kind of students, those students who are not monitored during the day and get into all kinds of activities. And of course, like they mentioned, some of there are children showing, stress, real stress, physical as well, eyes, headaches, that kind of thing. And some students are not, there are one or two students that some students can't even be accounted for. And the contact numbers that were given, they don't pan out. And you can't really visit unless, they go to the police station and say, well, we have not been seeing this student and so on and so on. And how can we get to this student? Some of the social services people, they try to, and they can't find them. So now that I won't say that's a very large number, but what I'm saying that just one is enough for that kind of thing, right? So that one of the things that when we talked and we could recommend is really an increase in number of counselors, guidance officers, social workers, and not only improving and enhancing the number, in that category, but certainly maybe there are too many schools that they have to service. So that has been our experience.
Thank you. Ms. East, has that been a similar experience where you're concerned?
The Clooney schools, we have had similar experiences in terms of the challenges that the students are facing, challenges of stress, of not coping with the online work, challenges of feeling isolated, and many of the issues that have arisen, we have directed the concerns to the Student Support Services Division using the usual formats of the referrals and so on. And we can say that the Student Sports Services Division, they have really been very good in responding to a lot of the concerns. They have also put in place life skill sessions, workshops for the students, seminars for the students. Our schools have a compulsory form teacher period, one session per week, where life skill programs are implemented to help the students to cope. And SSSD has been very helpful in facilitating programs during that time. One of the main concerns we have is that because the SSSD is overwhelmed, you send a referral now and the social worker and the guidance officer will respond. They will receive it and so on, but it takes very long sometimes for them to meet with the student and to resolve the issue. Sometimes it takes weeks. By the time they get to the student, there have been other interventions done by the form teachers and deans and so on to try to resolve the issue. So I think it's in terms of the timeliness of the response from SSSD that needs to be improved really very significantly.
Thank you. Let's make Mr. Hussein really happy now and move to curriculum and how...
on the question,
I haven't asked the question yet, Mr. Hussein.
Sorry.
Thank you so much. How have the boards been able to... What is your assessment on the adapted curriculum for the hybrid online system in terms of the teacher's ability to deliver the curriculum and its impact on student learning? And since Mr. Hussein is there, I know he's eager to go. I think your mic is muted, Mr. Hussein.
The teachers are coping pretty well with the online curriculum. It needs a bit tweaking though. The teachers they seem to be comfortable with, it's still unmuted? No. Yeah, they seem to be very comfortable with the online teaching. However, if they are expected to do the online teaching from 8:30 to 2:30, together with going to the school where they live, where they teach, and pick up the assignments and drop off the assignments, when are they going to do this? If they leave between 8:30, 2:30, then the online classes will have to be put on hold for a short while. And some of them do not live near to the school. So that is something we probably need to tweak. When would the teachers visit the school to drop off and pick up assignments? When do they do that? Out of their working hours or not? That's something we all need to look at very carefully. The curriculum itself, teachers are saying that they are getting through with the online. They are able to tap into resources online that would not be readily available in the traditional physical classroom. So if there is something that needs to be done incidentally in the teaching process, they can go online, pull it up online, and show it to the entire class. So that is a plus. That is a positive development with the online teaching. What they have found is also challenging is the assessment, to assess the students. Because if you give an assessment at home and the student completes it, drops it into the school, we are not 100% sure that is the child's doing. The child may have gotten help, and the performance on it may not be a true reflection of the child's capacity and ability to perform. What they are also saying, and is very challenging, is that if we have, and we have found out this, and they seem to agree, if we have the true hybrid teaching learning system, we can invite, at the end of the term, we work out a roster or a schedule where the various classes can attend.
Mr. Hussein,
yes.
I think we went through this already.
Okay,
so while your suggestion is very noteworthy, that again depends on the advice of the Ministry of Health officials.
Okay.
Let's just stick with the curriculum and how you see the assessment be taking place under these conditions for the moment.
Okay. If I get what teachers are saying, right now they use the Zoom provided by the Ministry of Education. What some teachers are saying, or what teachers are saying, some are saying that they need to have, some of them they have taken out their own personal Zoom program so that they can meet their students on a one-to-one basis, This is something we need to consider, whether we should subsidize those teachers who would like to get another teaching media, the Zoom, rather than just the Google Classroom that is intended for all the students. Maybe we need to consider that.
So teachers can't use Google Meets or Google Teams to meet individual students?
Yes, but when are they going to do it? They can use the Google Meet. They can use the Google Meet to meet the students, but some of them are saying that they need some more time. And not all, I'm just reporting what was communicated to me.
You're talking about the present timetable or roster?
Yes.
Oh, I understand. Okay.
Okay.
Right. Let's go to Mr. Ramdani.
Sure.
Yes. The hybrid system, we have not been able to assess it properly because, as indicated previously by Mrs. Maraj, we are presently doing mostly online teaching, and only recently the secondary schools came out and they are starting to do the hybrid learning. However, there, as indicated by many previous persons before, there are many challenges we foresee with the hybrid learning. And I would not get in back to that because it was mentioned before by other members.
Thank you. Mr. Ramburan?
Thank you, Chairman. So firstly, the positives. So when we're dealing with the majority who are digitally connected, we find our students have become more IT literate. That has been an advantage we have seen. The downside, though, is that we find that the evaluation scores of the students in assessing their performance, they're unreliable. They're unreliable because we suspect, we don't know for a fact, but we suspect there's a lot of parental involvement in the assessment of students.
Do you, and this goes for every board, do you have a mechanism whereby you can provide this type of feedback to the education ministry, because they're the ones, I'm presuming, who devise these assessment modalities? For example, I teach a university class or classes, and very early on I realized that, well, you give them an assignment and the assignment is not consistent with what you've seen their abilities with before, though people improve. What you do is you tweak it and say, okay, you get the assignment, but we will discuss the answers in a segment of the class interaction. So I will know, if I question your answer, if you are okora with what you have written. So, and I don't think you probably can do it on your own, but certainly it's a suggestion that, given your experiences, you can give the ministry to have more reliable feedback or assessment from the students, because it makes no sense putting these assessment modalities in place, getting students to respond with help from their parents or whoever, and it's not a true reflection of where they are in terms of their competence of the subject matter.
Yes, that is our concern, because, you know, one of your other objectives was readiness for external exams, and I guess it's only at that point we will get a sense of whether there's a true alignment between the evaluation scores we're seeing now and the external exam results. But at that point, it may be a bit too late.
Well said. Mrs. Titus, Alexander Titus.
Hi. Reassessment, I've heard the other members, and I'm saying that at this time, what teachers are required to do is look at alternative forms of assessment. So what some schools would have done they would have looked at what is called a performance task assessment. As such, the child has to be in front of the teacher and perform whatever task they are being asked to complete. So the thing is, it may be a bit lengthier because you're doing it one-on-one. But that was the best way that some schools found that they could overcome the challenge. And of course, because it's performance task, you're not giving 50 questions. You are giving one comprehensive question that will assess all the skills that would have been taught during the term. So that was one way. I do agree that any other way, the assessment will not be reliable or valid, and that has been a challenge. And because parents would have been prompting children during the term and all of that, we did not go down that road of assessing. The continuous assessment became a challenge. And hence, we have the performance task kind of assessment to try to treat with that.
Thank you, Mr. Bajna, and then Mr. Hills-Wilson, in terms of assessment and curriculum.
Yes. Assessment continues to be an ongoing challenge. However, the schools have divided ways and they share it amongst themselves how they go about assessing the children and ensuring that what is actually delivered is actually being understood. And as rightfully mentioned by other members, they're not being assisted externally, just get good grades. So they have devised methods that, besides giving assignments, there are projects, and also there are hard copies assignments that need to be done and sent up. So they have developed various methods, and we are now in a better place of assessing students than we was before. So we have moved, and we are seeing signs of assessing the students in such a manner that we could actually ensure the deliverables are met.
Thank you, Mr. Hills-Wilson from the Baptist Board of Management.
All right. Time has also mitigated against us in some cases. However, the teachers are using similar, as my colleagues would have said, similar ideas and even some extra classes, getting our students to do assignments and to pass them back in and to ensure that work is covered.
Thank you. Member Beckles, I haven't read to you for a while. You have a question or comment?
No, I'm okay so far. I'm all right.
Okay. Yeah. Mr. Singh?
I'm good, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Nakid? Member Nakid, sorry.
Everything is fine, Chairman. Thank you.
Member Ndassing?
Chairman, I would have lost the connectivity for a while, so a bit out of the loop in terms of what you're asking.
All right, I want to go to the issue of the students who are back in schools now and what your experiences have been in terms of how they have re-assimilated into the physical space, how they're coping with the need to social distance because they're, in many cases, young and they haven't seen each other for a while, and younger persons sometimes forget the rules and guidelines and how because this is really the crux of a hybrid of online and in classroom situations are taking place, because in many of these cases they also have online sessions because they're not in schools every day, and what your experiences have been. Let me start with Mr. Ramdani on that one, and then we'll go down the line.
I am not sure if you, to clarify something, you mentioned standard 5 students earlier are out.
That's my mistake. Forms 4 and 5, and I think Form 6.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify that. So it's the secondary school students, unfortunately, it is easier for them to follow the guidelines of social distancing and managing under this pandemic. They are coping quite well. The teachers are also coping well in the secondary schools with the limited time so far with the hybrid learning. We haven't had any negative
experience thus far, I think it is being managed quite well by the secondary school principals and the teachers. However, I'm not too sure if that would happen when the primary school students return in April.
Thank you. And what happens, is it that they have extra teachers? Because if I'm a secondary school teacher and I'm in a classroom, am I covering all the students back out, or are some still home on particular days, and how that is being reconciled? Or is that not an issue?
That is not an issue at our schools because it has been managed properly, where the students who are in school are mostly there for labs and so, and not for classes as such. And it has been timetabled in such a way that it is not affecting the other students who are.
Thank you. Mr. Rambaran, what has your experience been? And then Ms. Maharaj. Oh, but she's primary school. So Mr. Rambaran first, sorry.
And we are all primary schools, so we have no idea.
You're all primary schools. Mr. Hills Wilson, you're all primary schools or secondary schools included? Mr. Hills Wilson. Okay, let's go to...
Yes, sir. 3 primary school, 1 secondary school, and 1 preschool.
And what's your experience has been with the secondary school where forms 4 and 5 are back out?
Well, they are struggling in some cases, but because the teachers are present and with them, they're doing well. They're doing well.
And they're struggling, but they're doing well. I'm confused.
No, what happened is with the new system, shifting with the new system, all right, but they are gaining momentum. They are doing well.
Okay, Ms. East, from the St. Joseph Clooney Board of Education.
From 4 to 6 are back out using a hybrid timetable for labs, for modular exams, and for practicals. What we have done is the teachers who are assigned to come to school, physically to school, to monitor labs and supervise IAs and so on, they will have their regular online timetable, but they will set up asynchronous work for the students who are not at school. And synchronous work will, of course, the face-to-face work will be taking place in school with the labs. The students who are at labs in school or for practicals or modular exams, they may be missing some online classes as well. And those teachers understand very clearly, because we have put that as part of our system, that no new work is done at those times. And the work that the students who are at school are missing, that work is posted on the classrooms and sent to the students. So far, we've been functioning pretty well. The students at school maintaining the social distancing, all of the health protocols are in place, because we did have the schools organized and prepared in September, which of course did not happen. So far the Clooney schools, the hybrid system is working quite efficiently.
Thank you. Mr. Hussain?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. So far, we have had no reported problems at our 6 secondary schools. In the beginning, it was a bit challenging in that, this getting the norm being the social distancing and the mask. But eventually, all became acclimatized, and so far, things are working well. Now, the principals and the teachers, they have managed it well. Not only with that, but if some of the teachers who are presently teaching forms 4, 5, and 6, they also teach the lower classes. And through the astute management of the principal and heads of department, they have been able to tweak the timetable to ensure that the online and the physical classroom instruction it don't interfere with each other. But we are going pretty good so far. Thank you.
And Mr. Bajna?
Yes, everything has been put in place. The students have adapted well to coming back out to schools. One of the problems we have is we need to hire a private safety officer, because we no longer have safety officers assigned to the schools. But so far, we have increased the relevant sanitizing stations, and some of these schools have increased staff just to ensure that when the students come out, they are in a secure environment. They are monitored and informed about the social distances and the masks, and so far it has been a success, because at the end of the day, they will have both the online and the practical to do at school to ensure that their coursework and things is completed. So far we haven't had any incident, and everything is running smoothly, thanks to the principals and the staff of our secondary schools.
Thank you. Now, the next question has to do with the controversy that ensued last cycle with the varying results across the Caribbean region vis-a-vis CXC, and what the boards think has been put in place in terms of preparation for their students, one, but certainly in terms of the concerns they may have moving into this next cycle. Do you think all the issues would have been addressed? Because it's part of the assessment regimen now, in this case, an external examination, an external regional examination. Mr. Ramdani?
We have not had any feedback from our secondary school principals whether they are comfortable with the issues being addressed or not.
So no feedback yet?
No feedback at this time.
Okay. Mr. Ambaran?
Sorry, Chair, we only have primary schools. So
sorry, my bad. Mr. Hills Wilson, well, he said this. Do you have a response to that, Mr. Wilson? With your one secondary school?
Not at this time, sir.
Okay, Ms. East?
We are not very clear on whether the issues have been addressed, because initially when the students wrote exams last year, there was nothing that was untoward in terms of how the results panned out eventually. In terms of, we had some concerns about some of the results, as most of the schools did, but in terms of what the issues were that led to those results being what they were, those issues have not been clarified by CXC to our knowledge and to our satisfaction, so we are not clear. But what I will say is that all of the students who are in Form 5 who are preparing for exams, they have been subject mainly to formative or continuous assessment. They have not had the opportunity, those students have not had the opportunity to have an experience in the exam format that they will be expected to sit come June. And that is a major concern that we have.
So you have not had any sight of changes in format or administration of the exam for these students?
Yes, so the regular format for the exams for CXC, we expect that to hold for this year. But those students have not had the experience in terms of mock exams and summative exams. So they have been only subject to or only been given continuous assessment, formative assessment. But the external exam is largely summative. Yes, and that's a concern.
That's very important. Thank you so much. Yes.
Chairman, if I could find out, and with your permission, you may want to tell me, I'm going a little off course, but on the issue of exam results and the issues being resolved and so on, are the representatives of the respective boards, could they tell us if CXC, through the ministry, have communicated through the ministry and the respective schools and their watch are aware of all the issues as it relates to CAPE and CSEC? Last year's results, have it been finalized? And if they have been advised by the Ministry of Education, when will the scholarship results be made public?
Any of the board members want to comment on that or respond to Member Ndasing's question? about the reconciliation of those exam results as of last cycle, right, Mr. Member Nassing?
Yes. Yeah.
And as a result of those, the scholarships that will flow from those, is that your second part of your question?
Yeah.
Based on the exam results, of course. Anyone wants to respond to Member Nassing's query where that is concerned?
If I may, most of the queries have been resolved. Most of them have not changed. The grades did not change, but we did get changes in some of the subject areas. We have not received any information as to when scholarships or if scholarships will be assigned to schools, to students.
Thank you. Any other question, Member Nassing?
Not at this point in time, sure.
Member Singh?
Chairman, just wanted to go back to one concern I had, and it's relating to the attendance of students in forms 4 to 6. Are there any instances where schools have recorded any responses from teachers indicating to these students that they can go at the school, but the teacher preferred to still remain at home via the hybrid system and via using the devices? Is there any case of that being recorded at any of the secondary schools thus far?
Mr. Chairman, may I ask, please, for the question to be repeated? There was a part of the question that was not clear.
I think the question, if I'm getting it from Member Singh correctly, is if there have been any instances of teachers asking for those forms 4, 5, and 6 students to actually continue with the online learning system as opposed to going into the classroom. Would that be correct, Mr. Member Singh?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Yes. My understanding is that most of these classes are to facilitate practical work.
Yes.
So they would not be able to be facilitated online as readily. Would that be correct?
The students at the Clooney schools, the students who have been timetabled to return to school, are the students who are who need to do practical subjects, modular exams, and labs, so that you will have part of a class, in some instances, attending school, whereas the others will be functioning online. The students who, the intention from what we gather is that we are not having all of our students coming out for face-to-face learning, for work that can be done online.
All right, thank you. We're running close to ending in the next 15 minutes. So what I'm going to do is give each of the members of the committee a chance to ask any final questions that you may have, and also position the minds of our stakeholders to your final comments in what would be a 2 to 3 minute summation of what you think your major challenges are based on what we've discussed, and suggestions for solutions, which I think are always very important in these types of discussions. So any members of the committee want to ask any final questions? If not, we can go straight to Member Singh. I saw your mic went on. Member Singh, you have a question?
No, Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Okay, thank you. So I'm going to go straight to the representatives here and ask for your final comments that should not exceed 3 minutes, and ask that you, including those, what you think are your pressing challenges in need of relief. We've discussed quite a few of them this morning, including devices and connectivity, and what your suggestions for some solutions may be moving forward for the authorities that are listening or watching at this time. Let me start with Mr. Jiwan Ramdani from the Sanatan Dharma Mahasabha Board of Education.
Firstly, let me take this opportunity to thank you for the invitation to be part of this meeting here today. And like you said earlier, the major challenges that the Mahasabha is faced with is, in fact, devices and connectivity. And we have somewhat been able to overcome some of those challenges.
we don't foresee any major challenges with devices because with the rollout of the TAT devices and so on that are coming on board, lower classes now, because we would have dealt with the standard 5s and the standard 4s in the primary school and the examination classes at the secondary level. So we look forward to the assistance with connectivity and even some devices for the lower classes, because our 30% that we have shortfall, it is in the lower classes and the lower forms in the secondary schools. And we of the belief that once we have this rectified, we would certainly be on our way to having this hybrid learning system successfully implemented in our schools. So I thank you. And
thank you so much. Next we go to the area, Pritidini Sabha, Trinidad Tobago, Mr. Rambaran.
So firstly, echo the sentiments of Mr. Ramdani, Chairman. Thank you and your members for allowing us to provide feedback. So the first recommendation I would say is that we need to have a focused intervention on those students, socioeconomic status, because as I said before, even if they have devices, even if they have connectivity, before the pandemic, they were already challenged. Subsequent to the pandemic, they're even more challenged, as providing devices and connectivity does not fix the problem. There has to be a surgical initiative for these students. And you'd find many of these students are in the rural areas. So that's the first point I'd make. Second point I'd make is, given that for the foreseeable future, that hybrid learning is here to remain, we need to have some level of focused IT support for our schools. It cannot just be on an ad hoc basis where we depend upon the goodwill of our teachers and our parents. The third point I would like to make is that, and this is a general point, echoing again the sentiments of Mr. Hussein, we asked that these type of statistics and the directives to the various schools, that the boards be copied into it, because we are here to help. These are our schools. We are working for the same cause. This morning I was pleasantly surprised that you had available these statistics that we just don't know. Okay, so, but again, thank you very much for allowing us the opportunity to provide our feedback. Thank you.
What we do, and there are some restrictions regarding the circulation of some of the data that the ministry was supplied while the inquiry is going on. But after the inquiry has been completed, which should be in the next couple of weeks, we should be able to lift the moratorium on the statistics and be able to send those to you. Okay, so we will try to facilitate that. In addition to updating based on some of your submissions in your data presentations today. So thank you so much. Ms. Maharaj from the Presbyterian Primary Schools Board of Education.
Mr. Chairman, I want to endorse what has been said so far by my colleagues who run the primary schools. I want to bring into focus just for a moment or two, and it's part of my closing, that we are now looking forward to our standard 5 students coming out. And these are the ones who will be writing the exams. So our concern is that there are one or two things that we would like attended to. We believe that the medical team for 1 doctor and 2 nurses for each educational district is not enough, and that should be changed and enhanced. That schools, when the children came out, and we talk about the stress level, and therefore we need to increase the number of sessions held by guidance officers and so on, and prior to the SCA exam. Also, that schools have improved infrastructure that abides with health protocols, sanitization stations, thermal scanners, and so on. And that this question I would like to ask, considering that vaccination is not a mandate by law, what is the scenario for staff, teachers, and administrators who choose not to be vaccinated against the COVID-19 virus? So we also ask for additional, well, I know the ministry sent out to our principals, but it didn't come to us, but we heard through our principals for additional teachers for the exam, for supervision for the exam. So we are glad about that, and we really look forward to this kind of these kinds of things coming to our attention, like I think it was Mr. Ramaran who mentioned it. And I want to say thank you very much, sir, for inviting us. And these are my comments and closing comments and our board's recommendations in a nutshell.
Thank you so much, Ms. Maharaj. We go now to Mr. Michael Hills-Wilson from the Baptist Board of Management.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm also happy to have been here and for the comments given. We suggest that the Ministry of Education provide greater guidance on standardized methods for evaluating our students and advise principals as well on performance management arrangements for our teachers. With this in mind, we hope that there will be some filling of vacancies for middle management, heads of departments, and deans. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Ms. Deborah East from the St. Joseph Clooney Board of Education.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I thank you on behalf of our board for allowing us this opportunity. In terms of recommendations going forward, we would like to recommend that we need IT personnel to assist at all the schools. There are some schools where we do not have any IT technicians and support staff. In particular, secondly, we'd like to recommend that a review of the grant allocations be made to schools. For example, we have not received grants for practical subjects, and running of labs in COVID or under the pandemic conditions is a totally different situation to running labs under regular conditions. So for example, you may have a group of students, a team of students at stations in labs. That can't happen under COVID. Students must have individual stations and so on. And we need the finances to be able to fund those labs and practical subjects in a manner that pertains to and adheres to all of the health and safety protocols. We also need for the ministry to consider through the Teaching Service Commission the filling of middle management posts. There are some posts where for example, in some schools, you have a number of dean posts, and you have all of the deans who were in those posts have either retired or left for various reasons, and there are a number of vacancies that have been in place for years and have not been filled. Saying all of that is to say that this education system and managing the education system is no easy task, and particularly so under pandemic conditions. And so we thank the Ministry of Education for all of their interventions and all that they have done so far. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you so much. Let's go to Mr. Hussain from the Astra Board of Education. Your mic is still muted, Mr. Hussain. Could you unmute your mic, please?
Thank you so much. I'm sorry about that. We would like to, the Astra Education Board would like to thank the JSC for inviting us once more to be part of this consultation. And we do hope that in the future, like Mr. Rambaran, I would echo the sentiment that hybrid learning would be with us for a while, whether COVID is here or not. So it means to say that we have to get it right, and we may have to tweak it. The only two recommendations we have at this time is that we look for some appropriate model in the present situation to have assessment strategies so that the scores, the results will be reliable and valid. And finally, that the filling of vacancies that be fast-tracked, because we have a number of vacancies like the other secondary schools or the other boards. We have a number of teachers who have been assessed by the Ministry of Education as Teacher 3, Teacher 2, etc., but they have not been interviewed by the Teaching Service Commission. So thank you so much. It was a pleasure being here, and take care. Be safe, everybody. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much, Mr. Hussein. Mrs. Avion Alexander Titus from the Anglican Board of Education.
Good morning again. Thank you so much for inviting the Anglican Education Board to this worthwhile meeting. At the heart of our concern continues to be the child, because the child represents the future of our country, and we are indeed concerned. It is indeed worrisome, those children that we cannot reach. At the heart of the problem with such children would be the social issues of the family. What we've recognized is that the student support services, many times the interventions would occur with the child, and what really needs to happen is the intervention occur with the family. There are several issues that need to be worked out there in order for anything to happen with the child. So we would have the social issues that we would have experienced with children during face-to-face instruction has continued, or it has intensified given the fact that we are now online. We are therefore recommending that we look at family type interventions and not student focused interventions. Access is a challenge, and we really would look forward to greater support and partnerships in that regard, as well with the internet connectivity. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And Mr. Joel Bajnath from the Presbyterian Secondary Schools Board of Education.
On behalf of the chairman and the board members, we wish to thank the Joint Select Committee for inviting us. And the contribution today was wonderful from the other members of the various boards. It's something we could take back to our schools and we could use to increase the efficiency in this new system that we are trying to put in place. Just like everything, we realize a new system would have its teething problems. However, it has dawned to us that this is here with us for the future, and it's something that we would need to fix and share. And our shared learnings would be shared when our representatives meet with the various boards. And it's a learning experience that we need to conquer and take forward. We would like to see, just like mentioned by other members, the staffing issues sorted out in the schools, especially the part that the Service Commission has to play and the delays at stake. Bearing that in mind and all that is said, we do want to thank the Ministry of Education for the support they have shown and the interest they have shown in getting children back to school and all that they have been doing. So again, thanks and good day to everyone.
Thank you very much. And we'd like to thank all our stakeholders who have appeared before us today. We would like to thank you all very much for being with us today. I'd also like to take some time to thank the parents, the teachers, school administrators, principals, school supervisors, counselors, and education ministry officials. This is a very difficult time for any country in the world. People have been pivoting and transitioning to new forms and modalities of education, delivery, and assessment. It is an ongoing process. And that's why we have decided to have this inquiry, because we think it's in the interest of not laying blame as such, but finding out what's happening from the stakeholders who interface with our learners in the country to get your recommendations, to get your experiences. And we plan next to deal with the organizations that provide accommodation and remediation for students and learners with special needs and students with learning disabilities, in addition to, of course, including Tobago. And as per our suggestions today, the Telecommunications Authority of Trinidad and Tobago and the digital telecom service providers, who certainly have a significant role to play, and any other entity that we feel can bring some light and information to these kinds of proceedings. On behalf of our committee members, including members Ford, Beckles, Monroe, Indar Singh, Sinanan Singh, and Nakid, We'd like to thank you all for your participation and taking time to be with us today. We'd like to thank the Secretariat of the Parliament who always provide yeoman service and support to us. On behalf of the entire committee, to our viewers and listeners, we thank you for viewing and we invite you to be safe. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. All right, so that's it. We're finished.
Leave.